Thanks for joining us for Season 5 of the Service to School Stories podcast. I'm Sydney Mathis, your host and Chief Program Officer at Service to School. This season, we wanted to highlight some of our incredible alumni and dive deeper into their stories. You'll hear from a variety of student veterans about their journey from the military through the admissions process and onto campus. Guests will share how they overcame challenges, and we'll look back on their journey to give some advice along the way. Let's kick it off. Right. On today's episode of the Service to School Stories podcast, we are joined by Zac Cobb. Zac served in the Air Force and then transitioned out of the military and decided to go back to college. Did some time at UT Austin. I am a rival in the Big 12, so I'm going to have to say horns down, unfortunately. And then now you are a 1L student at Yale. So I know you're a part of a wonderful group of veterans there. But Zac, thank you so much for being here, sharing a little bit about your, academic journey with our listeners.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be on. Hopefully some of the things I say today will help, someone out there. But first, I'd like to just quick shout out to Alex Clark and Hillary Browning, who I met both through Service to School, and really great humans who helped me out a ton in the process. So just a quick shout out to them. But love y'all's organization and proud to be an ambassador now. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Alex Clark and Hillary Browning are also two of our Service to School superheroes. So I will echo that sentiment. But Zac, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your military background, and where you're at today?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Zac Cobb. I'm from Texas originally, went to University of Texas at Austin, where I graduated from in 2014. After graduation, went up to New York City to do the finance thing as an investment banking analyst. Wrapped up 3 years there, and then towards the end, decided to go all in and enlist in the Air Force, trying to become a pararescueman or PJ. For those listeners who don't know, PJs are one of the Air Force's special operations units. They're focused mostly on personnel recovery. Fortunately, that worked out, and I wrapped up 5 years in the Air Force earlier this year and had the good fortune of being accepted to Yale Law School, where I just started as a 1L a couple months ago, so right in the thick of it. And again, excited to be on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I always love to highlight is kind of why our applicants decided to serve. So you went to UT Austin first and then enlisted. What was it about that college experience that made you maybe consider the military as your post-graduation plans versus going straight into the workforce?
Yeah, so military service had always been at the back of my mind. And so I did UT Austin 2014, then 3 years in the private sector banking. And towards the end of that, it was kind of one of those forks in the road, looking around what I wanted to actually do with my life. And, I'm a proud American and I believe deeply in our country. And so at that point, it's kind of, now or never kind of moment. And it was the best decision I made. It was truly a great honor to serve alongside the people I did, especially as a PJ. And it was the best job I've ever had and probably will ever have. And I already miss it. Already miss the team. Already miss the job. But excited for this next step at law school.
Yeah, and then talk to us a little bit about what that transition from the military into kind of back into that educational mindset of how did you decide between law school? We have a lot of veterans that go the MBA route. Like, how did you decide law school was next for you?
Yeah, I considered the MBA route for me, but with my time in investment banking, I wanted to really focus on the law and go get a JD. The transition has been great. It's been about a decade since I was in the classroom, so I'm having to really step up my game. And the people I go to school with are very sharp and they work very hard. So it's a great environment to learn and to grow. But yeah, I mean, the law touches everything, and I'm excited to see where it will take me. But the my time in the military really taught me how important public service is, and I'm excited to long term return to public service and use the law degree and also my experiences in uniform and in finance to really find an area where I can continue to contribute to public service and the greater good.
Yeah, I love that you're kind of weaving that, service to others throughout, sounds like your whole career. So you made that mental shift that you're going back to school and law school was it. Where did you start?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is probably the most important question for listeners is kind of figure out, they in the pipeline, they talked about figure out your why and know your why. And I was, some people thought it was corny, but I think it's the place to start. And so, at least with law school, my why kind of came down to as I was wrapping up 5 years in the military, I was approaching another reenlistment decision. And at my age, it kind of came down to, okay, do I double down on the military and probably make a career out of it? Or do I transition out and find other ways to serve? So, law school in particular, I guess the way I thought about it was the two most important institutions to our country. In my mind, our military and then our justice system. So, if I wasn't going to be serving in one, transitioning to serving in the other and taking the lessons learned in uniform and applying them to serving in this other really critical institution, our justice system. So, I think my big advice for applicants and my mentee now through service to school is really, really understand why you want to go to law school. I think the space is facing a lot of changes, especially with new technologies like AI. So this might be a hot take, but I'd sit down and think about where the industry might be in 3 to 4 years when they'll be graduating law school, and think about what they'll actually want to be doing with the degree, and also what the market will look like. Obviously, it's tough to predict with how much change we're seeing right now, but yeah, I think starting with that why is really important, especially in a time of a lot of change. Um, so, that's something I wrestled with as I thought about law school, and definitely encourage applicants to think about it as well.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that all across all of our degree, programs is especially when you're investing so much of your time, effort, and energy into this next chapter. The why is, for the most part, a really important driver.
Yeah.
Without a why, it can kind of feel like you're, up a river without a paddle.
Yeah.
And you kind of lose that steam to go through the grit when it gets tough. In addition to the why, what else was really important for you when you were either researching law schools, building out that list, or kind of looking forward to what the 3 years in a program would look like?
Yeah, I think one of the best things service to school provides is the network to rely on and to actually talk to people who have been there and understand what law school looks like or the MBA program looks like. So what I did, I tried to do as I just tried to talk to as many people as possible, and people are super eager to help us veterans, and just have honest conversations, take everything with a grain of salt. Not what worked for one person is not necessarily going to work for you. And I think people tend to kind of paint their decisions as the best decisions, or it's how people give advice. But so take everything with a grain of salt. Talk to as many people as you can, and then again reconnect with your why to make sure what you're about to do makes sense for you and your long-term goals, and not just what everyone else is doing. I think the herd mentality can be powerful, so it's good to really check in with yourself and be sure that you know why you're doing it, and it makes sense for your values and your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And assuming part of your why propelled you through LSAT preparation,
Uh-huh.
talk with our listeners about planning and preparing for the LSAT.
Yeah, so it took me a long time. I was probably a little overconfident going in the first practice test, and it didn't go well. So I'm glad I actually studied my deployment. Took a lot of time to put in the work, but it takes a long time. I know they've gotten rid of logic games, so the test is different from what I took, but it don't underestimate how long it'll take you to really put up a top tier score. LSAT scores, rightfully or wrongfully, matter a lot, both for the applications and then also for scholarships. So it really is worth the time to study really hard and give yourself probably I'd recommend at least 6 months in advance to start prepping. So you also give yourself time. If you don't do as well on the first LSAT, you have time to do a couple other, refire a couple times if needed. So yeah, give yourself time.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest differences from undergraduate admissions and graduate admissions when we're talking with students, about undergraduate admissions. It's like they're looking at the whole person and it's that holistic review. And then when it comes to MBA programs or grad school, law school, it's a numbers game, right? They're looking at that undergraduate GPA, they're looking at that LSAT or that GRE or GMAT score, and that's kind of a big part of the driver there. What else do you think is really important for applicants to be considering when they're, working through those applications?
Yeah, that's another great question. I'm going to talk to my e-dog brothers and sisters out there. Enlisted mindset is kind of, I was thinking about this and I kind of summed it down to checking the box mentality. In the military, especially in the enlisted level, like you go through a checklist and you perform tasks and you just get 80% solutions and check that box and move on to the next one. And I've seen this with some applicants, friends that have applied to grad programs. And I think approaching the application as a checking the box is not going to serve you well. I think, I don't know anything. I'm just a 1L, but my suspicion is these committees, these selection committees, really like to see 100% solutions. So, especially at the enlisted level where you're not really writing often on your job, probably approaching the essays, oh, I've got 2 pages. I've checked that box and time to move on to the next one. Really good writing takes a long time and a lot of iterations. And so you can't check the box on the first pass. You have to take the time. And in addition to the LSAT or other entrance examinations, you have to give yourself time to produce really good writing as well. So avoid that check the box mentality because it's not the military anymore. These committees want really, really good writing, and you can't sit down and write a really fantastic essay on your first go. At least I can't.
Yeah, I don't know many people that could. And
Yeah.
I've read a lot of college admissions applications at the undergraduate and actually at the law school side. And I mean, it's, multiple drafts, getting that trusted feedback from a mentor, the essay, the personal statement, the statement of purpose, whatever the admissions office is calling it, is really important when they're trying to understand, who you are, what you bring to the table, your background, the context of your environment, and having a thoughtful essay is just so powerful. Especially maybe if you're slightly below on some of those numbers, or if you have just like a really powerful, compelling story. If your why is just so strong and like can weave it through different examples. I think those essays stand out the most, for sure. And, kind of just makes it feel like there's a person behind the numbers and they want people, they want humans and individuals in these classrooms, to your point, that have like empathy and emotions and, they're not just admitting a number. So I think your advice there is real spot on.
Yeah, and that's where again the transition from the enlisted military mindset to being just an individual human mindset and being able to show that in the application, I think it really gives you an opportunity to set yourself apart from other military applicants. One tailwind for enlisted applicants is at least what I saw through my application process, and I think it'll continue going forward, is that these especially elite schools are paying attention to the difference between officers and enlisted now, and they're actively seeking out enlisted applicants in particular because they realize that the officer experience is very different from the enlisted experience, and it's from a numbers perspective, only a small portion of the military as a whole. So again, that's where writing a really thoughtful essay is a huge opportunity to show that you understand this is the enlisted perspective that's so different from a lot of the applicants that they're seeing, namely officers. And you also can demonstrate the maturity and the leadership that aren't typically associated with enlisted experiences through those essays. So I think it's a great time to be an enlisted applicant in particular, and just double tap, triple tap the importance of those essays and being able to communicate it, because a lot of times enlisted they're working straight out of high school. They're taking remote classes and remote school from, I guess, less well-known academic channels.
Mhm.
And so there's a real opportunity and need to show who you are through your essays versus relying on, maybe you don't necessarily have like a top tier 4-year college degree under your belt. You can speak to that and then again use those essays to really set yourself apart. So yeah, enlisted people out there, it's a great time to be an applicant. So just take the time to really communicate your why and your humanity to the committees, and you're going to do great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you just, gave the Amanda her soundbite for social because that was just some of the most genuine and organic advice I think that our applicants could hear. So thank you for that. So going back to kind of your experience applying, was a school like Yale kind of your top choice? What was that process like, and what was your what was your reaction when you got in?
Yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful and excited to be at Yale Law School. I can't, yeah, it's just a true blessing, and I'm trying to make the most of it. And it was definitely a surprise uh, getting admitted there and into some other really great schools. Um, as far as preparation and the experience of being admitted, this is another piece of advice that I'll just give my enlisted folks. I'll press them on. Touching back to the checking the box piece, um, with law school, advice I was given and when I was deciding where to go, people often talked about the prestige focused nature of the law profession. And so, again, with the checking the box mindset, people might fall into the trap of saying, oh, law school, I'm just going to check on the box. And I'd recommend people really being intentional and thoughtful about rankings and how to factor those into their decision making. I think there's some positive trends in law schools more generally to kind of reject the traditional ranking systems, but as far as like future hireability and employment opportunities go, those rankings matter. And so as you think about where you want to school, it's not just, to some extent, it's not just checking a box. Like any law school degree will help you achieve your goals. If you have certain goals and you're trying to get into certain roles, unfortunately, the employers, the world in the military, where your degree came from, it really is checking the box. In the civilian world, people care about prestige. People care about these rankings as signals for future employment. And, it's just kind of the nature of the civilian world that you need to pay attention to them. So again, from the enlisted perspective, I think officers are more in tune with these dynamics. I encourage enlisted folks to really think about school selection and what kind of opportunities will be open to you afterwards, because it's a really important piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about that decision to enroll at Yale, obviously one of the best law schools in the country. But what was that like moving there, paying for law school? Help us walk through like the actual, components of enrolling and kind of, uprooting, if you will, which I think with the
Yeah.
military, kind of used to that uprooting lifestyle. But what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was, this was actually so I'm married, my wife is up here with me and we have a dog, and of all of our moves, the move to New Haven was the hardest move we did, but it's been great so far. I'm using post 9/11 GI benefits to pay, and that's an incredibly generous and valuable resource. Yale, fortunately, is also a yellow ribbon school, so they supplement. Again, I'll more unsolicited advice. Really think about the financial considerations of where you're going. I am a firm believer in financial independence and avoiding, you know, being intentional that when you do take on debt to fund your education, having a clear eye on what that means as far as like future opportunities that you're willing to take on, and choices. But as far as the move up to New Haven, it's been great. My wife and I and our dog are pumped to be here, and we live just down the street from the top pizza places, so that's dangerous. But all in all, it's been a great experience getting up here. And um, as far as choice, school selection, I tried to go to as many admitted students programs as I could with my wife, just so we could see, what our life together would be like at each of the schools. That was important to us and to me. But yeah, I think it's good to get on the ground and actually talk to students on campus and see what their life is like on a daily basis, because that's going to be your life for 3 years. And so it's good to go and know and make your selection again clear eyed.
Yeah. And paint the picture of your first day in class for us. One thing I think a lot of students don't realize, and Hillary shared this with us in a previous episode, but Yale Law School doesn't award grades. So what is that like in the classroom? What is it like interacting with your, classmates and with your professors?
Yeah, it's great. It's personally, I really value that aspect of Yale Law. My peers work extremely hard still, and we all work extremely hard to learn the material. You're going to be tested on it professionally, both at the bar and then actually as a practicing attorney. So you still need to know the information. But it does change the dynamic in the classroom from what I can tell from other people I've talked to at other schools. I think it's just a more collegial, potentially less competitive environment. People, it's a bunch of type A personalities, so people are going to find ways to compete regardless. And there's other ways, other gold stars that people seek out and compete for. But it does relieve a lot of the pressure of 1L, not having to worry so much about grades the first semester. So that's a huge plus for Yale in particular. But yeah, it's a really fantastic environment, and people work very hard, and they're very smart. So again, it's a great place to learn.
Yeah. What kind of fun stuff do you all do? Unless you enjoy like, the classroom conversations, I'm sure are fun and
Oh yeah.
enjoyable,
Oh
but
no. Yeah, I just like talking about constitutional law all the time. No, I think well, my wife and we've had built out a great group of friends here. One of our favorite activities is going to our friend's house. They have a 2-year-old daughter who loves Disney songs. My wife happens to be a phenomenal singer, and our friend, plays the piano beautifully. So we sit around and they sing Disney theme songs around the piano every Saturday night. So that's really experiences like that are that's what we'll look back on. We won't look back on the grades. We'll look back on the friends we made and those kind of experiences. So we tell all of our friends and family about that one. So and it's the most fun I've ever had. So it's great.
oh, what a wholesome experience. I love that. What about any clubs, any involvement at YLS?
Yeah, so I'm very plugged into the Vets Association. Hillary is as well. Yale's been reaching out again. It's a great time to be a vet applying to law school at Yale in particular, but Yale's done a great job of reaching out to vets and building a great community. I think our class, 1L class, is almost 10% vets right now. So there's a ton of great people that you immediately have that bond with, and who kind of get it and have a little more life under their belt. And yeah, that's where my closest friends are so far. But so that's where I spend most of the time. I was an editor on one of the journals, and then try to spend a lot of time talking to professors and reaching out to people who are working on stuff that I'm interested in, and then also using time outside of the classroom to focus on other stuff that I care about.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was texting with Hillary once and she was like, oh yeah, all the Yale vets are at a bar chatting together. I'll, ask Jack if he's interested in coming on the podcast. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you all have a wonderful social network and group there as well. So what type of law do you envision for yourself? What do you think is, the next step for you after law school currently, understanding that, it's only one all year and you have some time to go?
I get it. I don't know anything. I'm just a 1L, so I don't know where the law will take me. I'm excited to see long term committed to public service. I'm not really motivated by prestige or money. I'm really just here to work on problems that I think are important for my family, our communities, and our country. Um, two opportunities I'm excited to explore. One, the prosecution route, potentially at the federal level. So, assistant U.S. attorney. That's a very competitive route. So, we'll see if it works out. And then another opportunity I'm really spending a lot of time with that I think is really important for our country is there's a lot of movement in defense technology right now. And trying to figure out how my experiences in investment banking and then the military and now law school could combine to help us solve these really important national security issues around technology that, in my opinion, are extremely important for future peace and prosperity of our country and our allies. So where I fit in on that is TBD, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But I think there's policy opportunities. There's private sector, a lot of private sector activity focused on investing in companies that are really, I think, inventing and innovating game changing technology that could, I'll just generally what I care about is I care about our country and I care about my teammates still in service and all my fellow service members. So I think what can support them the most is giving them the right technology and equipment to, again, keep the peace and make sure we have our technological and military edge in the future. So that's generally what I care about. And I'm excited to see how I can attack those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're excited to, continue to have you on the team as an ambassador, continue to support you from the sidelines however we can. But as we begin to wrap up the conversation, you've dropped so much advice. I don't know how you could think of one other one, but what is your last piece of advice for listeners who are either currently in the admission cycle or considering law school as their future educational plans?
Yeah, I guess to active duty service members, I'm biased. I know everybody has a different experience in the military. I had a really phenomenal positive experience. Um, in general, I think the military is a great gig. If you are thinking about transitioning out and you're in a current role that maybe you aren't excited about in the military, consider there's lots of opportunities for go-getters to transition. There's a ton of different opportunities, and I can't speak highly enough about the opportunities that the military provides. So, I've seen guys and gals hop out of the military and then not have a clear path out and kind of be flail, in the indecision and back in the civilian world. And, the military gives you a really great reason to get out of bed in the morning. It gives you education. It's good pay. And I know it's hard on the body and the mind and the family, but it's before you jump out, just recognize what you're leaving. You're leaving camaraderie, a mission, and really phenomenal opportunities. So when you do plan to get out, make sure you got a plan and use Service to School, which is a great organization that will help you come up with that plan. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Zach, this has been wonderful. As expected, we are so excited for your future and just the amount of time that you've contributed to Service to School. We really appreciate, you also seeing the value in the pay it forward model and wanting to help guide your, fellow enlisted service members through this process and what that next step is for them and helping them kind of discover that why. So I can't thank you enough. I know, the rest of the team here at Service to School can't thank you enough. But truly, you're making an impact on your fellow peers. So it's been wonderful to have you on the podcast today.
Well, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. Continue y'all's great work. I can't tell you how important it was for me personally. And it's just a phenomenal resource. So thanks so much.
That's all we have for this episode. Join us next week, same time, same place, where we share more Service to School stories. Service to School Stories is hosted by Sydney Mathis, Chief Program Officer, and Alec Emmert, Service to School CEO. Our podcast is produced and edited by our Director of Communication, Amanda Tobias. Service to School is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free college admission support to transitioning service members and veterans. Join us next week and follow us for more on your favorite social media platforms.